Hello, I'm Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Channel 4, which is one of my favourite channels in UK television, and how they have been incredibly successful in taking shows that have been previously broadcast on a different channel and adapting it to their own channel. So my two examples are The Great British Bake Off and Taskmaster. These are two of my favourite shows, particularly Taskmaster. I was actually quite worried when it was announced that it was moving from Dave or UKTV to Channel 4, but yeah, this is going to be discussing how well they've done that and more what they've learned from the move, the Bake Off move, which happened first. And so yeah. So The Great British Bake Off is one of my favourite shows, and it originally aired on BBC. It became very quickly known as a quintessential British show. It's a bunch of bakers baking delicious cakes and biscuits, and yeah, it's just wholesome and lovely, and I love it. And then in 2017 it was announced that it would be moving to Channel 4. Initially I was a bit confused about this, as Channel 4 wasn't the channel I would associate The Great British Bake Off. BBC is traditionally British, so it makes sense that The Great British Bake Off would be on BBC. However, the network and the production company did promise that there would be no changes in the format, and yeah, so I was like, okay. But then it was announced that we would lose Mary Berry, Mel and Sue, who are, absolutely love Mel and Sue. They are the three people that I associate the most with Bake Off, so I was initially a little bit like, why? Like, they were my favourites, so yeah, I was a bit worried about how it would work, but overall I think they did a good job. So the good points. Noel Fielding, I absolutely love Noel Fielding. He was initially a bit of a wild card for me. He wasn't who I was expecting them to replace. However, he's absolutely amazing. He has that really good mix of quirky humour and also like relatable with the baker's humour. Yeah, little bit of a tiny criticism was that sometimes the scripted aspects of it do come across a little bit cringy, because they're trying to like emulate what Mel and Sue used to do, which is not typically his comedy. But overall, Noel Fielding I think was a great choice, and Sandy also was a great choice. I think, yeah, she's just a very lovely person, and you need lovely people on the Bake Off, so yeah. So another thing I think that they did really well was they did keep their promise of keeping it to the same format. So this was the signature bake, the technical, and then the showstopper. And if you put like them side to side, the BBC version, unchanged. And one of the articles I read about it said the best thing Channel 4 did to The Great British Bake Off was nothing at all. So they kept their promise of not changing it. Obviously there were a few changes we'll get into later, and it was very successful. They didn't lose any of the viewers. Channel 4 initially said that they'd be happy with 3 million people tuning in, and they got 6 million. They doubled what they were wanting, so yeah, and then they've just grown and grown over the years. Another thing they did really well is the tone is exactly the same from the BBC version. It's got that nice, like, I don't know, just warming, comforting, but like dramatic vibe. It hasn't gone like too Americanised, like I think they did a few seasons of The Great British Bake Off, or like The Great British Baking Show, or they adapted it to an American version and they got the tone all wrong. It's very dramatic, like with loud music, very Americanised. And Channel 4 didn't do that. They kept the exact same tone. The tent looked the same, it was in the same location. The bakers had that same kind of niceness about them. They weren't like too competitive, but they helped each other. They had dramatic moments, and they all just like being together, and yeah. Bakers are really well. I really enjoyed that. And Prue also, initially when I heard that Mary Berry was going, like I said, I was very upset. I really love Mary Berry. But Prue, I think the first season that she was in, I felt she kind of came across too harsh. Especially because Paul was the harsher baker out of Mary and Paul. However, I think now that they've kind of settled in, she works absolutely amazingly. I think Prue is really, really good judge. I think she is fair, stern, and like encouraging at the same time. One thing that I'm not sure whether to put into a good thing or a bad thing was that they got rid of the history section. So if you don't know, on the BBC version there would be a couple of point, there'd be a point in each episode where Mel or Sue would go and like investigate the history of the food that they were cooking in the technical, tend to be the technical, but it could be anything else either. And I did find it really interesting. However, that was kind of the time that I would run to the toilet if I needed the toilet. It would be in the history segment. Yeah, so I'm not sure whether it was a good thing taking that out. I think it worked with the BBC because they have their like mantra of inform, educate, entertain. So that is their educational, informative bit. So it makes sense for it being there, but because Channel 4 don't have that requirement, they don't need it. And for me, I do quite like it because you do get more of the like them cooking. That's the bit that you watch Bake Off for. You don't really necessarily watch it for the history part, even though that's like an interesting add-on. And I can tell Channel 4 were a bit hesitant about whether or not to keep it, because in the first season, I think it was like episode 4 or 5, and they hadn't had any history segments up until then, and they chucked a couple, like one in on episode 4 or 5 and then another one later on, and it just kind of felt out of place. And yeah, it didn't work very well. If they'd done it from the start, maybe, but I personally think they did the right choice taking it out. Yeah, so I'm going to stick that in kind of like middle, miscellaneous. I do like it, but it's not necessary. So what were the problems with it moving to Channel 4? My main problem was the fact that it was moving to a broadcaster that had ads in it. BBC doesn't have ads. That's one of the most recognisable things about BBC, is that there are no ads, and Channel 4 does. So the way they formatted it was they kept the show an hour long, about, I think, and then added in ads. So it meant the show ran over for an hour and a quarter, which I feel like that was the best solution. I would have been quite annoyed if they had made it entirely an hour with ads, so that you'd only get like 45 minutes of the show. So yeah, I do like that. However, it's a bit annoying when it goes over to like 9:15, because what if you have a show to watch that starts at 9? I feel like it does kind of ruin the like hour long, half hour like typical slots. I think something that does go over like to 45 minutes, it's just a bit of an odd time. And my other problem with it was that Sandy left in 2019. So yeah, we'd just got used to having Noel and Sandy as the Great British Bake Off hosts, and then after 3-4 years we lose Sandy. It kind of introduced a sense of instability that we wouldn't have got if Mel and Sue had stayed. However, I do think Matt Lucas is a great choice for a host. He has that very like bubbly, like fun vibe about him. So I do really like her replacement. However, I think because their move was due to money, and it was because Bake Off couldn't pay what the production studio Love Productions wanted, that's when they moved. And I feel like because it moved on kind of like a financial term, I feel like they could have negotiated better and got Mel and Sue, or I don't know. So let's move on to Taskmaster. So Taskmaster was originally produced on Dave by UKTV Play. They're kind of ambiguous, like mixed together, and it's created by Alex Horne and started in 2015. I've been watching since the very first episode aired on TV. I absolutely love it. And it became, I think Dave and UKTV picked up very well. They were very good at advertising it. For the first few seasons, if you really wanted to, you could watch the episode a week early on UKTV Play, which I thought was a really great thing, because I was like, okay, I'll watch it early. And now they've even started putting out the episodes on YouTube so that people living internationally can watch it. In 2019, it was announced that it would move onto Channel 4 again. Initially scared, but Alex promised that it would be in the same production company and that there'd be no changes to the format. And because I saw that the Great British Bake Off they'd kept their promise and it kept to the same format, I was mellowed out a bit. So that they promised that the only change would be the channel, which makes sense. An interesting thing about Taskmaster, and what I think it differentiates from the Great British Bake Off, is that it initially pitched itself to Channel 4, and they developed a Channel 4 a bit. However, it then got picked up by UKTV. So for them to now go to Channel 4 makes sense. They were somebody they pitched to, they passed on it at the initially, and then they were like, actually, yeah, you've shown that you can be successful, you can come onto our channel if you want. And that's the kind of, it was a lot more friendly and amicable than the move from BBC to Channel 4 for the Bake Off. Yeah, and they said their main reasoning was they wanted a broader audience and Channel 4 could bring that to the show, because the show has seen a massive rise in popularity, hence why they are offering it on YouTube for bigger audiences. Again, Taskmaster kept its promise and kept the same production company, the same hosts, and the tone of the show was exactly the same. Like, obviously, with this season it did start a bit different because obviously it was filmed with social distancing like requirements. So the live studio audience wasn't there, they were in like a separate room watching it, and then so you'd also hear their laughs, but they're like spread out. So excluding those changes that are due to the pandemic, it is exactly the same to when it was produced on UKTV. Like, I was trying to think of any like problems with it, and I genuinely can't. It is exactly the same. This is because they have very similar audiences and very similar styles and comedies, so it just works. I think they learned from the Great British Bake Off that the hosts and the judges are essential. Obviously you can adapt it, but if you want an easy change from one to another, you need to keep the same hosts. Bake Off is successful, however I think they were kind of slow to being successful. It was a very slow transition, whereas with Taskmaster, it's honestly like it's just been picked up, placed there, exactly the same, and it just works. So yeah, they've learned that having the hosts, and also I think that the American version showed how vital Greg and Alex are to the show. Like, obviously Alex created the show, so he's going to be there. But when it had an American adaptation, Alex Horne went along, so it's his show. He still contributed it to a lot. However, they changed the Taskmaster. And while the guy, I can't remember his name, while the Taskmaster on there was alright, it wasn't Greg. It wasn't Greg. Like, there are very few people that I feel could like fill his shoes. Like, obviously for different audiences you can have different Taskmasters, but for an audience that is familiar with having Greg Davies, and the show's popular, partly due to having Greg Davies on there, changing the hosts would be pretty much disastrous. Channel 4 I think have done a very good job. They're very, very good at creating original content, and now they're very good at adapting different shows to fit their channel. So yeah, round of applause to Channel 4. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little rambly video about Channel 4. I was going to make it a bit more analytical and a bit more like structured, however I have a lot of work to do. I've got so many deadlines coming up, and I just wanted a quick video that I could just kind of chat about why I like Channel 4 and how I think they've been very successful in adapting shows. So yeah, there probably will be a lot more kind of rambly videos and just me talking about things that I like, just at the moment until I get a bit more free time that I can actually plan out proper video essays. So yeah, I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!